Welcome back to Business Boon, a product of the Boon Chamber hosted by Deepen Talent Strategies. I'm Shawna Lake.
And I'm Lauren Byrum. And today we have as guests Don Lamb, who is the director of the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, and Rick Isenhower, the VP of Senior Commercial Agricultural Lender for the First Farmers Bank. So, Bank and Trust, excuse me. First Farmers Bank and Trust. Both gentlemen are also landowners in Boone County. So, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having it.
So we can't wait to learn more about the both of you and your thoughts on the state of agriculture in Boone County and the central Indiana area. But can we first start off by knowing a little bit about yourself, and maybe you can each tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Fourth generation on the same farm, Boone County. We're pretty proud of that. Farmed and have done other things in banking as well, throughout my life. Love working at First Farmers. Really what I love the most is my clients, and working with my clients, which that probably is the bank is the bank, right? And the bank is made up of people that you really interact with and love to deal with every day. And then they help you then work with clients. So really, money is money, but people are where it really is in relationship wise. So I appreciate that First Farmers lets me do what I do. Love what I do. And that kind of goes to one of the last thing you just sent out, but we'll get to that later. and Don and I live a mile and a
Yeah, a couple miles away, a little too close to each other.
couple miles away.
Yeah, you could get some long-term Boone County history out of the two of us, but Rick is significantly older than I am, and significant. He went to kindergarten with my brother. So that tells you a little how long we've known each other. Our families know each other. So that's been really good. And but I farmed in Boone County most of my life, and that's really what I love to do. I went to Purdue, studied ag econ. And then 2.5 years ago or so, I got a phone call that said, would you consider this? And thankfully, my brother and his boys said, yeah, you could do that. And so I got the chance to go be the director of the Department of Agriculture. And so that's been a great experience. And I would just throw, as far as just a startup thought is, I would still go back to what Rick said too. It's still all about people. Doesn't matter if you're on the farm or it doesn't matter if you're in the State Department of Agriculture. It's all about relationships and people. And so I appreciate the chance to be here and talk about that.
Yeah, well, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
We appreciate you being here. And as human resource people, we also agree that it's always about the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
If we could start off, I would really like to hear both of you describe what you think the current state of agriculture and ag business is in the state of Indiana, and then zoom into Boone County.
Yeah. You want to start?
Once you go state, you're probably more versed at that.
Well, it'll be interesting because he has some of the financial side of that. And I can tell you right now in the short term, it's not a very great time to be in agriculture. And it really comes back to the simple fact of with inflation and the way things have been, our costs have increased. And then commodity prices fell last year and they've not really been able to recover. And of course, in the short term, at least right now, we're dealing with some tariff issues that don't help commodity prices in general. But there's a lot of volatility on that side. So the thing that's interesting about farming and agriculture is that you can't control what you sell your product for. And I think some people realize that, but most people don't. Our costs can go up and we can't just pass that on to the customers. So that's the unique thing about agriculture. And so agriculture has been great in Boone County. It will continue to be great in Boone County over the years. But when you look at the trends, we're in a trough right now, and we need to climb back up out of that trough, and we will. But it's not a real fun time to be running the financial numbers. But I can lean that question more here.
Yeah, what we're seeing, not just Boone County, but all over kind of the area that I cover, which is pretty much West Central Indiana. Farm losses from last year, and we're just barely break even. Projections for 25 are kind of the same and we're talking about production agriculture. So one thing that we, I guess pride ourselves on is being able to work through those troughs and also the high parts as well, with our clients. And so, um, sometimes this year some clients we may have to eat into some equity to gain enough dollars into the operation to keep farming this year. So those are tough decisions to make, from the individual farmers to us as well. But we try to partner that up to find the best way and the best avenue to do so. But yeah, it's kind of tough out there right now on production agriculture. Yeah.
Mhm. I appreciate the honesty and not talking about things being sunshine and rainbows and just
Right.
getting an honest picture. I mean, you also just highlighted that you have to take a multi-year view and a multi-year partnership in this. You can't take this 1 year at a time and make 1 year decisions
Correct.
in this instance.
Yeah, I would again to echo what Rick had said. That's partly why you have a relationship with bankers. It's partly why it's not just a numbers game; it's a relationship game because you're gonna have good years and bad years. My dad always says it's easiest to manage in the bad years because you just don't spend anything.
Right.
And then, but it's harder to manage. You mentioned, even in the good years, we want to work. Well, we need good advice when there are good years and you've got money to invest one way or another. That's when you have to be really wise. So honestly, right now, as far as management goes, it's not that hard. You don't spend anything and you just work and you try to keep your costs as low as they can and market as well as you can. But then when those years come, when there's some profit, how do you do that then? And that's, you think you need your banker in the bad years. You also need a banker that can help you in the good years.
Mhm.
So, Rick, you kind of talked about, the ups and downs. Right now, we're in a trough in the area. And, how are banks adapting to the needs of the farmers in the situations that are going on right now?
A lot of conversation.
Yeah.
Right. I spend a lot of time on farm, working through things with them. My big thing, and all my clients know it, is communication. Talk to me. Let's figure this out. I have most of my clients are really good about just, hey, we're thinking about X. We want to run this by you. We're thinking about Y. We want to run this by you. Here's what we're thinking. How's that look on the banking side? Those kind of things. So it's communication is really what makes those things go and get us to where we're not in the trough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you look at 2 years out of 10. Historically, you're where we are today, and about 2 years out of 10, you're at the high side, and everything else is kind of in the middle, right? So, and we understand that it's cyclical. Sometimes it doesn't happen right, right on the calendar, but things happen, and you have to adjust.
Yeah.
And farmers, I feel like production agricultural farmers are very adept at making changes in their operation, in both times, in the trough times and the high time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers.
No, it does. Yeah. They're in it for the long haul. So they have the end game in mind.
Right. Yeah, and then sometimes it's the long haul generation for generations to come.
Yeah, it's true.
So you got to kind of think about those things as well.
Yep.
And it's interesting to hear how the community and how the finance world is supporting farmers. And I'm interested to hear, Don, how the state is supporting agriculture. And are there any policies or new initiatives that farmers should be aware of?
Yeah. I get real excited about agriculture across the state, and partly because I do think there's tons of opportunity right now. When we think about Indiana, we think about corn and soybeans, and we know that there's a lot of variation even in corn and soybeans. We raise a lot of popcorn, we raise waxy corn that goes into cornstarch production, raise seed beans, we raise high oleic beans that are a healthier oil that comes out of the bean when it's processed. We have a lot of ethanol production. So when we think about what we do in Indiana, we a lot of times think like that. But there's also so much more to do with agriculture. And the local food movement is not a fad. People want to know where their food comes from. And so there's really, it's kind of like you have two worlds. You've got more of the commercial agriculture, and then you got this local food movement. And what I'm seeing happening is those are being melded together, where, there's really not two different sides of agriculture. That's what agriculture is. And so, I would have said maybe 10 years ago, it's really hard to get into agriculture because there's a lot of capital investment. It's hard to get land if you're going to grow corn or soybeans. Right now, there's a lot of opportunities in lots of other things. Just no matter what you want to do in producing something, there's somebody who might consider buying that product, and you get really good at doing that, processing it, packaging it, producing it. And so like our Indiana Grown program is one thing that we do at the state of Indiana, where we support people who are producing something here in the state. And it can be something as simple, well, I don't even think it's simple, something like honey. It's not a simple process, but it could be honey. It could be your own beef. It could be making a salsa. It could be lots of things like that. And so, and then in those businesses, the challenge then is to get them from point A to point B, C, D, and really scaling that to where it can be sustainable financially. Because most people that do that are working somewhere else, and then that's a hobby until it can produce enough money to make a living. So, that's probably when you say what we do, the Indiana Grown program, and really the encouragement, the marketing, the connections with people are what we do best, is help people get from what they're, where they're at to where their dream is. And it's hard right now. It's hard to scale things like that. Yeah. And yet it's happening. And so it's exciting to see things come along. I love corn and soybean farming because that's what I've done a whole lot. But I also love it when anybody that wants to can get involved in agriculture, And so, and I think farmers want to see new people involved in agriculture. It's not like you've got this, you've got this that you're trying to control, agriculture is a big tent, and we want a lot of people in it.
I love to hear you say that. And Shawna knows this about me, but my husband probably kill me for saying this, but I would love to have a hobby farm, have a garden, and my family are farmers up in Huntington, Indiana, but that's my eventual goal, is to have a small hobby.
Then you'd bring agriculture, to Boone County, and first thing, like Donnie said, we think of corn and soybeans in Indiana, right? Yeah. But you look at, you've got a lot of new lights down in Zimesville farmers market that are, that are really thriving. Yeah, they are. We've got, companies like Weaver Popcorn, Bear, with kind of sites in Boone County. It's where they're doing research, right? Across the road from me, Ingredient is doing research on, on foreign products. And using some, Boone County land to do so. And those are good. Those are things that are making affecting things worldwide.
Yeah.
So the research that they're doing there, like Signium, I know up around Thorntown area, he's working on some disease identification control, in Clem products. That's right. And those are things that are going on in agriculture in Boone County. Right. We're raising barley and hops in Boone County. Right.
I knew that because there's a brewery down in Barterstown. One of them gets their hops from Boone County.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sugar Creek. Yes.
Yes.
Sugar Creek hops. And then Chalkies up around Thorntown with the barley.
Sun
has.
Yes.
And those are really neat things that are going on. Like, you don't think of Indiana as growing hops,
right? Sure.
But they're doing it, and making new paths on how that can be done.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. Boone County's pretty diverse in the agriculture. Even though when you drive down the road, you see orange soap.
Yeah.
Well, the challenge is what is the market? Because a farmer will grow something. If you can tell me I've got it, I can sell it, and here's where you're going to sell it to, and here's what the price might be, or you can set your price. Farmers will grow it. Mm-hmm. But the reason we grow a lot of corn and soybeans is because we've got great markets, for those products. Yeah. And Rick mentioned the Ingredient is in Indianapolis, makes cornstarch, but also Premiant in Lafayette does the same thing. And so Boone County is situated perfectly 40 miles from two different big corn processors that make a specialty corn product. It's not just corn that's going to go to cattle feed or something like that. So there's a premium there for that. And just where we're located in Boone County at the crossroads of America is really good for that side of agriculture. And then if you want to do the specialty products, you maybe have to develop your own market, but that's the key. Whenever the market is there, people will fill the market. It's supply and demand. It's sure an amazing thing. It works. Supply and demand works.
You just have to have somebody to grow it.
That's right.
It's good to know that Boone Power is always there. For generations, we've powered the growth of our neighborhoods, our businesses, and everything in between. Today, our commitment is stronger than ever to provide affordable energy you can depend on and keep you connected to what matters most, now and for generations to come. Boone Power, formerly Boone REMC, is a Touchstone Energy Cooperative, your source for power and information.
So for landowners and farmers, what are the key financial factors that they need to think about as they are, making long-term investments in their operations?
I mean, real simple is liquidity, right? Working capital is a thing that's very important.
Yeah.
Have enough working capital to sustain the farming operation, right? We had some that this year they're going to sell a piece of ground because land prices are fairly high.
They are.
To help sustain their operation. And those are hard decisions to make for sure. But it's happening, right? Everything is marketing. Marketing is a huge thing for our agricultural, farmers, and whether that's in especially crop or whether that's in something else that's farm to table kind of operation, or you're growing number 2 yellow corn and soybeans, right? The marketing of that is key. The market gives you some opportunities, but it can take them away pretty quickly. So acting on those opportunities that at least you can cover costs are really important. That's one of the things that we work pretty hard on. For farmers, we have an ag summit this last year. February was our 30th year of having an ag summit, and we bring people, our clients and other people in, industry specialists, and talk about it. And most of those times in 30 years, there's somebody talking about marketing, right? That's a key factor in production agriculture.
Sure.
I would say that cash flow is maybe the number one thing to think about when you're thinking about any kind of ag production. You need to know throughout the year what your cash flow is going to look like. And because we are cyclical, we're Indiana, so we had this thing called winter.
Yeah.
And in the winter, we most likely won't be growing much unless you have a greenhouse operation, and that's different. But that's the big thing is how do you ride out the cycles? And that's why when it comes to the local food movement, most people have some other job because it's hard. It might make money for a certain amount of the year, but it can't throughout the year. And then how do you, and that's where, again, maybe a banker comes in. If you can show where, I can use some operating money to make me through a whole year, even though there's going to be months of that. In fact, every grain farm is like that. There's months of the year that you're in the hole and you're waiting for harvest.
Sure.
And so you have to have that relationship. So, but understanding that cash flow and knowing where those maximums are, knowing that, for a grain farmer, when you hit August, you've been spending a lot of money for most of the year and you haven't got any income yet. And then at the end of the year, you're trying to do tax management. So you also may need some money because you might want to be spending money for the next year's crop so you don't have to pay as much tax in this year's crop. And so cash flow on a farm is really, really, really important. And it is whether you're a grain farm or whether you're raising honey.
Yeah.
You got to know your cash flow.
I think I'd go through a lot of man acid if I were in that industry. I think that not making money until August would give me a lot of anxiety. You were mentioning what I would describe as like an ecosystem in Boone County around agriculture. If people don't think about that, if they don't think of themselves as being a part of that ecosystem on a regular basis, are there some other entities or companies that are a part of the agricultural ecosystem of Boone County that might be helpful for people to think about?
First thing I think of is the equipment dealers in Lebanon and Boone County. You have what a role they play in supporting farmers throughout the year. And so that's one area there. As Rick mentioned, there's seed companies in Boone County. There's lots of things that support agriculture in Boone County. I think I've heard once where an agriculture dollar turns over 7 times in a community. So, there's just anything to do with food production. There's lots of different pieces of that supply chain. And that's one thing I've learned in this role. When you're a farmer, you think about what you produce and how you market it, how you sell it, and all that. And you know that you've got people that help you along the way. From my perspective now at the Department of Agriculture, I've learned, there are so many people passionate about agriculture, and they may play this role that a farmer may take for granted. Maybe this isn't that important to a farmer, but if this person wasn't there playing that role, they wouldn't have this product.
Yeah.
And so I've really learned to appreciate the fact that so many people are involved in agriculture, and we don't necessarily appreciate it enough.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. So how solid is, that ecosystem, and what are the strengths and greatest threats right now to it? If you can speak to that.
I would say one of the greatest threats right now is just the unknowns. We're dealing with a lot of I don't know if you want to call it instability, but when there are so many unknowns and things change really rapidly.
Yeah.
And things in Boone County can change very rapidly, and we've seen that over the last year or 2 years. And there's things that surprise people, and all of a sudden the environment is different. And so being adaptable to change is really, really important, because it's going to change. And even in 1 year's crop cycle, it will not be like you planned it. You're going to plan it one way, and it won't be exactly the same. Might be better, might be worse, but it won't be the same.
Yeah.
And so you got to be able to handle that change.
Yeah, for sure. That's the biggest probably talk that I have with clients is, okay, but what if that doesn't happen? What's plan B?
Yeah.
Right. And maybe C, maybe D. Right. Okay. So, we deal a lot with crop insurance as well.
Sure.
In the finance side. We can say, okay, you have drought this year. How much are you protected? Right. And those are things that, we really get in the weeds about, with clients. And I think the ecosystem, as you call it, right, I think it's a strong ecosystem, because agriculture is kind of funny. We all kind of band together to work on things together. We have lobbyists from Indiana at Congress in DC all the time, talking about Indiana agriculture.
That's good.
Donnie's been there several times, probably in the last year, and educating people, right? And that's what you're kind of trying to do today, right? Is educate people. And so I think that is a good thing. If we feel like we're not educating ourselves and we're not adaptive, then we're probably going backwards.
Yeah.
Great.
I think it's a testament to Indiana that you can go outside of any town about 5 miles and probably see a cornfield or see a soybean field or some sort of agricultural movement. So it really is like the backbone of Indiana.
Yeah. I think there's two things. Like, if you look at what the goal of what this would be, and for whoever's listening, I always think there's two things that you want to do. I want to encourage farmers. If you're involved in production agriculture, whether you're growing corn and soybeans, or you're growing honey, it's a great industry, and there's no reason not to be optimistic about it. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be cycles, but please keep going, because we need agriculture. And then the other part of it is educating non-farmers of what's important in our food, what's important, how we produce our food. There's a role for every part of agriculture to play, and some people look at big agriculture like corn and soybeans as just this big commodity crop. But there's a really big role for that to play in the stability of our food prices worldwide. And it really has an effect on even, other countries in how people can afford food or not.
Yeah.
And then there's this role of where do you want your food to come from and what I want to eat, feed my family every day. And that's a different product, but we're all together on that. We're all, whether you're a commercial farmer or a small farmer growing for a farmer's market, agriculture is really together in those two worlds.
Yeah.
Not really two worlds.
I agree with you. I think there's a huge focus on it right now too, is just knowing where your food is grown and how it's grown and what's in it.
and we're proud of it.
Yeah.
You know, that it's one of those things is if you've been in agriculture a long time, your tendency is to think, oh, they don't like the way we've been doing it. We've got to do it differently. No, we've got a really good food system.
Yeah.
We've got a great food system. We can do more. We can do better. We can all, but we've got the best, safest food system in the world.
Yep.
And we can be proud of it.
Absolutely.
That's a fantastic high note to end the conversation on. Thank you so much for that. We always like to end our conversations with something that you know now that you wish you had known earlier in your career.
The only thing I can think of is how fast life moves, right? And you kind of go, well, in your 20s and 30s and 40s, maybe even 50s, you're right. You kind of think, I got time for that. Oh, you got time for that. Well, then, you know, you end up, you know, in your 60s and go, wow, I got to hurry.
Yeah, right.
Right? I got to hurry. It's if I'm have things I want to get done, I've got to hurry. So I think it's, if somebody kind of told me that, you know, years ago, it's like, no, you really don't have time. Right? You need to do what you want to do, what you need to do today.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it just moves so fast.
Yep.
Well, you know, what Boone County in 5 years, how much it's changed. And in the next 5, it's going to probably accelerate that, right? So,
Yes.
things, you know, just looking at things and thinking about that question, that's probably what comes up my first of been anyway.
Thank you for that.
Yep. My dad told me he wanted to farm because he wanted to manage crops and livestock and he didn't want to manage people. And he said it took him about 3 weeks to figure out that it's still all about people. And so I would say I've been a little slower to learn that lesson. I mean, you know, I think as you get older into your 40s and 50s, you do realize what's important. And it'll kind of maybe end with what we started with. It is always about people. It's always about relationships. And sometimes the small conversations you have at the end of a driveway are the most important conversations you're going to have for the whole week.
Yeah.
And so just don't take for granted the conversations you get to have with your people every day.
Yeah.
Fantastic advice from both of you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Love this conversation. So if our listeners would like to get a hold of you, how can they do that? Or can contact you?
765-978-0297. Send her now. But for me, you can get a hold of me at Lamb Farms in Lebanon, but I spend most of my days now down at the Department of Agriculture, and you can definitely find me at the Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on my business card. So it's 317-446-3647. It's been that way since 1988.
There you just
I've had the same number. So that's probably the best way, you know, to get a hold of me is through that. And I email rick.isenhower@ssbt.com.
wonderful. Thank you both so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll be back with more insightful conversations. Until then, please continue leading and growing with purpose.